Welcome to the Mum CEO podcast. I'm your host, Esther Roach. Join me as we explore the dynamic intersection of motherhood and entrepreneurship. From the challenges to the triumphs, we're here to unravel it all. Get ready for insightful conversations, practical wisdom, and a whole lot of inspiration. Let's embark on this empowering journey together.
Hello and welcome to the Mum CEO podcast. I'm your host, Esther Roach, and today I'm joined by Nicola. Hi, Nicola, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Esther. Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure having you today. If you'd like to introduce yourself and what you do for the benefit of the audience, please.
Hello, everybody. My name's Nicola Noel. I am a multi-award-winning specialist psychiatric nurse, have been for over 2 decades, transformational consultant, and a clinical hypnotherapist. I take women, especially women of colour and corporations, from silently screaming to feeling more confident, resilient, create ethical and radical leaders, and to address racial equity in the workplace. I have worked with everybody from the UN on prison reform to HRH Duchy of Cornwall on menopause awareness. And I'm currently working with Amazon's Black Employee Network Women on addressing racial equity and mental health within the workplace. So I take neuroscience and mixed modalities to create rapid and long-lasting transformations within women and corporations. I'm also a speaker, and I talk a lot about my mission, which is changing the outdated ways of mental health and ensuring that everybody's voice is heard, seen, and valued.
Oh, fantastic. That's an incredible introduction. And you're a mum as well.
I'm a mama bear of one 22-year-old. I only did it once, Esther, only once.
I did it 5 times, so I wasn't so sensible, if you like. No, that's fantastic. So, tell us a little bit about, you've mentioned quite a few things there. How did you get started? How did you get into even becoming, first of all, a psychiatric nurse before everything else that's evolved around you?
So I became a psychiatric nurse by accident, or you could say it was the universe's way. Unfortunately, I was taken to A&E after a domestic violence incident. And it was because of the treatment that I didn't receive in A&E. The incident was, unfortunately, he had forced me to take an overdose of an unknown quantity and an unknown mix of tablets. At the time, my son was 6 months old, and I went to A&E at 10 o'clock at night, had said just that. I'd taken an overdose. I don't know what the tablets are. And I sat in A&E from 10 o'clock at night till 5 in the morning with my son and my mum. I didn't have blood pressure taken. I wasn't asked if I was okay. Nobody came to see me. Now, what I know from that incident is that is a typical way women of colour are treated within the NHS. The inequalities in health are dramatic. So when I left, and I did leave at 5 o'clock, I was just like, I'm going to go home to die, because that's what I truly believed was going to happen. And it was a real possibility.
Mm.
I just said, if I survive this, I'm going to do better, because I could treat a dead dog better than this. And that's where my career as a nurse started, because before that I was a makeup artist, a holistic therapist, and beauty therapist.
Wow. So quite a major transformation, really, just from your lived experience.
Yes.
Wow. And how did that journey go? Because obviously I'm looking at, your son was only 6 months and you're experiencing all this around you. how did you navigate your way around all that at the time?
Do you know, I don't know how.
Mm.
However, what I can say is nothing without God. And I'm not highly religious. However, what other explanation is there? Genuinely, because one of the great pulls for me to get out of that situation was I had a young child at the time who was a boy, and what I didn't want him to think was normal was how I was being treated, and having him as that yardstick, because I was not raising somebody who would treat another human being, let alone another woman, like that.
And that's where it starts from, isn't it? It's what are we giving to our children? Because I feel with this is a little bit of a deviation, but in terms of people experiencing issues of domestic violence, the trouble is sometimes there is a stigma around, oh, if you stay, it's fine and you're staying for the children. But at the same time, it's also looking at the other aspect that you could be causing damage to the child by staying. So it's almost like it's a very difficult one to kind of navigate,
Mm-hmm.
or, you can't advise somebody properly, but
Mm-hmm.
until someone is ready, it's a very, very difficult challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So well done on just moving your son out of that situation and yourself as well, and then kind of rebuilding yourself and creating or getting into this career that you're now helping other people. And I'm going to dig into, that little bit aspect of the racial equity aspect, because you now work with, corporate organizations. What
Mm-hmm.
exactly does that entail? What does that look like, and the work you're doing?
Okay. So I've had the pleasure of working with the UN on prison reform, HRH Duchy of Cornwall on menopause awareness, and now I'm currently working with Amazon's Black Employee Network. So I'm doing a women in program empowerment program for the women subsector of Amazon Black Employee Network. Racial equity. So people often confuse equality with equity. So equality is you can have a wall and you can have people of all different heights, and you want them to see over the wall and they all get the same size box to stand on. That's equality. Equity is that you have people of all different heights in front of a wall and they have all different size boxes to ensure that they see over that wall. Equity within the workplace, especially racial equity, it looks like not just having the same,
Mhm.
but it being adjusted for them. And you're taking in, you know, racial and cultural nuances. You're taking in the challenges that face them. When we look at the Afro-Caribbean or the Black subsector, they are the biggest proportion of homeless people that are in employment.
Wow. Staggering.
So when we look at racial equity within the workplace, racial equity within the workplace looks like addressing that. That's only one of the things. But how are corporations addressing racial equity within the workplace so people of colour are getting just and proper promotions, are being paid adequately? Because, and this is also another statistic from the UN, women of colour will work 4 months free for the year compared to women of non-colour who work 2 months free for the year because of the pay gender gap.
Oh, wow. That's a huge amount, isn't it? Massive difference.
Massive. So when we go back to the homelessness, within people who are working, who have jobs, who have to use food banks, and people of colour, it's about addressing that they get the right pay, that they are getting the right promotions, that they are being seen, that they are being valued within the corporation and heard, and their voice is being heard. Because what happens if you're not at the table or you're not involved in policy making or decision making, your voice, your perspective, your culture is not heard. And that then takes away from creating a rich tapestry.
And what would you say, with all that in mind, what would you say are the challenges, one, for the actual, women of color trying to sort of get heard? Do you think there's an element of fear, or people don't put themselves forward, or they just lack in the confidence?
All. So we'll start with the element of fear.
Mhm.
Angry black woman. The moment, and this happens a lot, you open your mouth, you're not assertive, you're angry. You're not confident, you're arrogant. You're not challenging, you're combative.
Mhm.
Compared to your white counterpart, who will more likely than not be challenged in that way. And then when we look at lack of confidence, when you suffer so many microaggressions within the workplace, then there's going to be a huge lack of confidence. There's going to be a huge of underlying trauma that goes there. And then let's look at cultural differences.
Mhm.
So there's been a lot of employment from overseas,
Yeah.
especially in big corporations. And let's look at a corporation like Deloitte. So and Amazon, a lot of people from the African continent. They don't speak up in meetings because they're brought up in a culture of you're seen but not heard,
Mhm.
unless your opinion is artful. So they could be sitting on gold. They could know how to do something better, but unless they're directly addressed, they don't.
Mhm.
So it's teaching them or them learning how to be more strategic, like their white counterpart. And that by talking about their accomplishments, by talking about their skills, by talking about their expertise and their knowledge, they are not bragging, they are stating facts.
Mhm.
Because when they don't do that, what happens is people are free to run away with their work and claim their ideas as their own.
Yeah, and that's very true, because I was speaking to, one of the ladies I know who is in recruitment. But you're mentioning, from a racial side, but she was generally saying that when it comes to sort of men, even in recruitment, they're more prepared to go for a position, even if they don't fully meet the criteria. Whereas with women, we hold back. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that come into play. So you've got the race thing, but it's almost like there's a massive lack in that confidence to just put forward and try.
Yes. I have a saying that I say, have the confidence of 10 mediocre white men. And you will forever be reaching for those stars, reaching. And that's for women across the board.
Mhm.
Because as I always say, women, we have major inequalities in health, inequalities in lifestyle standards, inequalities in the workplace. However, then you have to double down when you look at women of colour, and triple down when you look at women of sexuality, and quadruple down when you not just look at sexuality and colour, but you start looking at disabilities.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's it's a massive one, isn't it? I think we could talk all day about this. You would need like 20 episodes to like break it down into smaller chunks. But what would you say companies should do? How can they support their workforce and actually get the best out of them?
So it's about not having the tick box mental health or mental well-being days. And what's really interesting about that is the few that I've run, I've had people come to me after and say, this is not your average mental health well-being. And I'm like, no, it's not your average mental health well-being day training, because it's looking at the nuances. So, and it's looking at the intersectionality as well. So not just the fact that it's mental well-being, not just the fact that it's racial equity, but who have you got in your group? Why aren't they coming forward? What does their mental health truly look like?
Mm.
Because I'm going to use menopause as an example. The biggest age in workforce at the moment is women. And 75% of women who are in any workplace at any given time are currently in the transition. When adequate adjustments are not made, they either quietly quit, they adjust their days and go down to part-time because they can't cope, or they leave altogether. So what's happening is it's costing the company because they're losing, not just through, time off, sickness or whatnot, because what you'll start to see is what I call petty, persistent absences. So 1 week she may be off with a cold. 2 weeks later, she might be off because she's feeling well. 4 weeks later, it might be, I just feel a bit anxious. I just feel a bit stressed. That triggers sickness monitoring. That then also triggers performance management.
Mm-hmm.
When if adjustments were made, they would retain the knowledge, retain the expertise, and save themselves a lot of money. And the same goes for when we look at mental health. So what they need to be doing is putting the adequate resources in there front forward, because what that will do is retain people, retain the knowledge, help increase their bottom and top line.
Wow, and that's really interesting with all that, because I think sometimes it's easy if somebody doesn't quite understand how to address, you talk about, let's say, mental wealth, and then this is basically mental health. But it's if someone doesn't actually understand, whoever is in charge of that area within the company, if they don't understand how to deal with that, how are they going to support the staff properly? Yeah, and
And that's why they need adequate training, it's not a nice to have, because the moment they start addressing that and getting people like myself in to really weave their magic and do the work, they start creating radical and ethical leaders. Radical and ethical leaders don't come about by chance. What happens is they are moving more into a compassionate and empathetic way of working. And when you're working from compassion and empathy, you get the best out of your workforce. You get the best results, which increases the company's money, just like that.
Wow. And that's really powerful as well, because I think you can, with retention as well, it kind of helps the stability of the company, and you're retaining all that knowledge, all that experience for the benefit of the company, which is, incredible. How do companies work with you? Do you work with just companies? Do you work with individuals? What sort of, how do you work with people?
So I work with companies, corporations. I also offer a white glove service, which is a wraparound. So I would be that individual's mental health strategist Monday to Friday. So they've got an issue, they've got a problem, they want to strategize their mental health to create more ethical and radical leaders. So we're talking about your C-suite executives. We're talking about your high-flying professionals who feel that they can't drop that mask, who feel that they have to be the one that knows it all, who's wearing burnout in a blazer. I am the girl with that concerned. And then for the corporations, it is more running programs. I speak as well. So going in, either doing a keynote or delivering a program, so they can start to look at how are they addressing mental health. And the beauty of it is we've combined neuroscience with modalities, not just individuals, but in a company itself. It's creating that rapid change. So I'm currently working with Amazon's women, and the amount that are now going for promotions, or are now changing jobs, or are now being able to use their voice and feel more confident, and it's just magical.
And that's rewarding for yourself as well, because you've been seeing this for well over 2 decades of your life, and it must be really satisfying just seeing that transformation in people whenever you deliver something and you're helping them out.
I love it. I still get shocked. I'm like, we did that together. We did that together. But just seeing when they put the work in and they get those results, it's something so beautiful.
Well, fantastic. And where can they find you if they want to sort of tap into, your expertise?
Wonderful. Website is still currently being built, so naughty me. But the main place to find me is on LinkedIn at Nicola Noel. You can also find me on Facebook as Nicola Noel. And I also have Brainworks Therapy, my company, as a page on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Oh, that's fantastic. And, before I wrap up with you, I just wanted to find out if you have any 3 tips that you'd like to share or leave the audience with.
So the first one is we go further together. So as you rise, pull people up with you. Don't smash that glass ceiling to stand on top like a mountaintop. Share the view. So pull as you rise. That then goes into building longer tables, collaboration over competition. We build longer tables, not higher walls. You want to increase your knowledge, you want to increase your expertise, your skill set, you build longer tables. So you're not just sitting in the pit by yourself. You are giving yourself a 360 view. What we want is growth mindset where innovation happens, not groupthink. Groupthink happens when you're by yourself. Don't do that. And the third thing I would say is breathe. So often we forget to breathe, we forget to be in the moment, we forget to be in the journey. We don't stop and look at how far we've come. And before you know it, it's gone. Stop, breathe, and enjoy the view.
Oh, fantastic. And that last point is very well said, because I know you're award winning. And I met you at the Women Who Awards as well. And it's such a beautiful experience when you look and reflect at, where you've been and where you are now and where you're going, which is amazing. So well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you, Nicola. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you to the listeners for listening.